Areti, thank you so much for taking the time to be on episode 3 of the Misfits podcast. Just a little introduction for our listeners. Areti is the head of professional services at Telefonica Tech, one of 2 European community representatives introduced by Microsoft, a mentor for women in power, and a leader of the Reading D365 and Power Platform user group. She also speaks globally about AI adoption and the future trends in AI. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. What an intro. Thank you. You picked me up big time.
You're an absolute powerhouse of a woman, Areti. We're happy to have you.
It was hard to get it into that small caption as well, because there's so much more. I was thinking, did I mention this? But yeah, no, it's such a pleasure to have you on. So thanks for making the time. I know you're a busy lady.
Thanks for having me.
So I was going to go straight in because I know recently you've been appointed by Microsoft as one of the 2 community representatives in Europe, and that's the first I've heard of this. I think it's a new thing. So what does that mean, and what does it bring to the European community?
Yeah, so it is a new thing. It's only just started, and we haven't actually all of the community representatives, and I'll explain what that means in a second. We haven't actually met yet, so it's very, very new, straight out of the news of Microsoft Community. So previously, if you were a user group leader, there was a call that Microsoft had where all of the user group leaders could join, and then there was communications around that, support and things like that. And it was once a month, and that's still going. But what they've realized is that there's a lot of leaders in the world and in different regions. You can't really get them all together quite as well. So they decided to just formalize that a little bit and create a committee of representatives from each region, and myself and Marcus France from Europe are handling kind of the Europe user groups. And you've got 3 for Asia, you've got 2 for the US. So there's a lot of them. Even from a representative's perspective, there's going to be quite a few of us for the different regions globally. But the idea is to get us all together, and then we help maintain that user community within our region. We share best practices and tips and solutions across user groups and user group leaders. We support user group leaders, and we communicate any feedback that the user groups have to Microsoft as well. So we kind of advocate for the user community and represent the user group leaders and help shape the direction of the platform, which is all about bridging that gap between Microsoft and its user base, and ensuring as well that the platforms continue to evolve in the way that meet the user needs. So it's really that formalizing that feedback loop a bit more than there's been structure for historically.
I can totally see the benefit in that, actually, because there's so many different user groups now, and there's more coming out, and there's no, I suppose from the time when I've been involved in that kind of online thing, I wouldn't really have any idea where to go. You kind of make it up as you go along, I suppose. It's great to have that representation and somewhere to go. So would that be for sort of user group leaders to come in and maybe ask you for support on, even things like topic subjects? People aren't always sure what to talk about.
Yeah, it could be really anything, to be fair. It's just really having that person there that can give you any support you need, see whether Microsoft can help you as well as Microsoft, and just look at really having, that representative that you can speak to and that can tell you what's happening, what else is happening in your region, and what else is happening in my case, what's happening in Europe. And it's an interesting one because we don't really, being elected to this role, it's a bit of an interesting one for me because I know fairly well what UK user groups are up to, but I don't necessarily know much around the European ones. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the different user groups, even in Europe, are operating, because there's so many different ways you can do a user group. You can have it in person, you can have it virtual. Some of them are big, some of them are very small, some of them do their own thing, some of them are part of a bigger umbrella. Like, my user group in Reading is under the UK D365 and Power Platform user groups, but there's user groups outside of that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the user group leaders tell us, but also how we can support them, because I think by default having that network and that community of Europe UGs, US UGs, and so on, that is valuable in its own right. But then from a committee perspective, us representing Europe, some other people representing Asia, and some people representing the US, it's going to be very interesting to see what we have in common and what we don't have in common, and what kind of different issues different regions have. So it's going to be very interesting, I think. So watch this space.
Yeah. That sounds really exciting. And what advice would you give to anyone looking to get more involved in the community that perhaps doesn't know where to start, or what kind of advice could you give them?
So it depends where you are in the world, I suppose, coming from the community side. So do get involved is the first thing, because user groups are very useful to be involved in. You don't have to be organizing them and managing them. All of that's very fun too. And if you are interested in doing that kind of thing, let me know. But even as an attendee, it really helps to just meet other people that you know, network with them, talk with people in a similar role in other organizations, discuss the technology, learn from one another and how you're implementing it. Most of the events are free. There's food. That's in more like just but there's also really great speakers as well that will talk about a number of things. It might be Microsoft MVPs, it might be new speakers, it might be people that are just really passionate about the platform, the technology. So there's so many events, and like I said, in the UK we're lucky because we have so many of them in different regions as well. So if you want to look at the UK D365 and Power Platform umbrella, where my Reading one is under, you can go to d365ppug.com. So we've got, Reading is one, right? But we've got Birmingham, we've got Cambridge, Manchester, Newcastle. There's a London one that is an evening one. We have a national event that's an all-day one as well. We've got Southampton, Bristol, and a virtual one. But there are others outside of it as well, like the Scottish Power Platform user group. Charlie Stewart and Rani run that. It's lovely. They run great events as well. And I'm sure I'm forgetting others outside of all of those. Apologies to any of the user groups in the UK that I haven't mentioned. But there's so many, and if you're looking outside of the UK or more general kind of community groups that are not necessarily user groups, the community.dynamics.com or community.powerplatform.com Microsoft sites can be very useful for finding user groups and other related kind of Microsoft groups, like the Women in Power group, for example, which is kind of associated to the community, but it's not a user group as such. So there's loads of different events there. And you can search by a keyword or you can search by a location, and it will give you a list of all of the events and user groups and things that are
that's so useful,
relevant to the community. So definitely check that out as well.
Definitely.
I can vouch for I go to the Manchester user group regularly, and I recently attended Birmingham, which was lovely. Like, what a lovely group. And what I've noticed recently is that there's a real encouragement for new speakers coming through, and I think that's great. I love seeing new speakers as well as the experienced guys, but it's just always a bit of a surprise. You don't know what you're going to get, and it's so refreshing to see that passion coming through from people. So yeah, it's great. And the national one is great. And it was in Manchester recently, which is even better for me.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really always nice. Like, it's nice to see familiar faces in these events, if they're, whether they're virtual or they're in person. It's really nice to see people, but it's also, to a certain extent, even better to meet new people that you don't know, that are, just getting started in being a speaker and talking about what is, what's happening in the community. And we definitely encourage people to, particularly if they've not done it before, to have a go, give it a try, because user groups are a great place to get started, because there's not hundreds of people. It's a very, very small group of people. Well, not that small, we're popular, but you know what I mean? It's not as intimidating, effectively. User groups are all about a community of people that really enjoy just getting together and talking about the technology. So it's lovely to get new speakers and women speakers particularly as well. And just, I always encourage everyone to come and give it a go, because a lot of the time you will get very experienced speakers that give sessions in these events, and people in the audience will then ask questions, and then they will give them feedback and they will tell them their experiences. And you think, oh my God, you know so much about this. Like, talk, like, do it. Speak. And they're like, oh, no, I don't have anything to say. And I'm like, you definitely have something to say. So if you're sitting there listening going, I don't have anything to say. Yeah, you do. Think about it. Because everyone does. And you can always buddy up with someone as well. So I would always be happy to support someone if they want to speak. And either they could, I could help them and speak with me, or find someone else in the community that would be willing to help them. There's always someone. And that's the great thing with the community, is if we ourselves can't help you, we will know someone who can help you, hopefully. And it just creates that network of people and opportunities for people to do cool things. So yeah, think about it. Come and speak.
It's interesting that you touched on women there, Areti, because in my experience, it's more often the women that will be a bit more hesitant to come forward. So there's maybe a little bit more relationship building or cheerleading that goes on, I think. And you get a real kick out of that result, and you see somebody, and I saw it recently this week with Shami Munshi. It was absolutely brilliant on an online session that she delivered her first time. Feedback was awesome at the end of it. And it's taken a little while. It's been a little journey to kind of get there, and now she's got the bug, and I know we're going to see more from her, and that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Brings me on to the next question, really, because you're an ambassador for UN Women and, as we mentioned, a mentor in the Women in Power programme and a strong advocate for women in tech, as we know. Big question, but how far off equality do you think we are, and what more can we do, like day to day, just to get us closer to that?
Yeah, it's a tough one because, and I will tell you a bit about the kind of the UN Women, what they do a bit later on. But when you are involved at kind of a macro level, looking at equality and women's equality, you realize that we are quite lucky to live in the country that we live in, and Europe, I would say, to a certain extent, in general, because we have different problems as such when it comes to equality than the rest of the world potentially does. And what I mean by that is we are a long way away. And let me explain. Let me give you some examples, right? Why we're a long way away. So look at in the UK particularly, we tend to look at the economics of it and kind of leadership and that kind of thing. So if you think of the economics of it, we've got a gender gap in economic participation in general. There's less women in the workforce than there's men, although there sometimes are good reasons for that. But women earn significantly less than men. That's very much a big thing that people talk about a lot, the kind of the pay disparity. And from a leadership perspective, and if you look at politics as an example, in many countries, women are underrepresented generally in leadership roles. But I think globally in kind of politics and parliament seats, I think there's only like 27% women generally. So that's quite low. Should be higher.
Yeah.
There is, though, we look at it from that perspective, but then if you look at other countries in the world, they have more fundamental problems. And what I mean by that is access to education and healthcare, varies widely. And in some regions, girls are a lot less likely to complete their education or even have one at all. They have limited access to healthcare. And when I was talking at the, participating, I should say, in the UN sessions earlier this last month, when there was a big session around the Commission of the Status of Women, is what it's called. They're estimating that by 2030, there's going to be 110 million girls and young women that remain out of school. And that's a huge number.
Wow.
So
That's shocking.
We don't think about that in the UK as an example, but it's definitely an issue. And then you look at other things like social norms and cultural practices around the world. So child marriage, FGM, things that we don't really want to talk about, but they are still happening. And 1 in 5 women still gets married before the age of 18 in the world. We don't want to think that these things are happening, but they are. So do attend the Commission for the Status of Women, but be prepared to feel very sad about this other word.
Yeah.
And the other one is food security as well, right? Again, we don't think about this in the UK, but women and girls are much more likely to experience food insecurity and be affected a lot more and displaced a lot more by wars, for example. So yeah, not in a good place globally, but some countries are better than others, is the good news. And events like that allow all of the countries in the world to come together and learn from each other at the end of the day. But it really does vary, and this is one of the reasons why I love the fact that the UN Women institution as such exists, and the fact that these events happen is it kind of opens up the world to you to a certain extent, and you have to acknowledge the fact that these things exist and the fact that there is massive differences in countries around the world. And it's, if you've woken up, if you live in the UK, or you live in Europe, it's very easy to think the rest of the world is like the UK and Europe, and it really isn't. And that's the thing that was a bit of not a shock to me, because it's not like I didn't know that it was different, but just how different is a bit of a shock. But what more can we do? Well, advocate for other women if you're a woman, or just advocate for women if you're a man. It doesn't really matter if you're a man or a woman. It's really about making sure that we have an equal world for everybody, right? I'm not an advocate for women because I think men are the worst thing out there. Far from it. It's I don't think anyone does, and men equally I don't think want a world where women are not equal to them either, right? So it's really just about making sure that we're all treated equally. All our behaviors, obviously, that should not be occurring in this day and age. Some people have a very weird sense of let's call it humor. We've all been there. So yeah, if someone is sexist or they're belittling a person, just tell them off. They should know better. And talk about salaries for the pay discrepancy thing. That's a difficult one as well, because people don't really necessarily want to talk about it, and that can be a cultural thing as well. But we're only gonna get to pay equity if we are having those conversations, and just talk about what it's like to be a woman, in my case, in tech, just that honesty about the issues that we're facing, because I think a lot of the time we tend to bury it, put a brave face on, and move on with it, and we shouldn't really. And this is why podcasts like this are great, because they give you that platform to actually say this is what it's like, and this is what we should all be doing, and these are the things you should get involved in. So a few things there that we can do.
I attended an event, the Bletchley AI user group, for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and that was a Women in Tech. It was a RENS special. And it felt brilliant to be there. You know, the audience was probably 50-50 split, but there was some like heads of data and AI for some of the Microsoft partners, and then users as well, actually. And there was some young women coming up through apprenticeship schemes, and it was quite refreshing. But it was, everyone had such a different perspective and experience, from like literally totally oblivious to whether I'm the only woman in the room or not, to to really having to kind of shout louder and try harder to be heard. But it felt like a really important event to be in. So yeah, I'd like to be part of more of those sorts of things, I think.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. They are great. They're great at bringing the focus in and bringing, women in industry together is always very nice to do.
I think it's a bit of a confidence boost for people that aren't quite sure if they should or shouldn't be speaking.
Yeah, definitely. And confidence is a big part of it, for sure.
And moving on to AI, Areti, because we know you're such a huge advocate, and the whole world is talking about AI. It's the biggest buzzword I see throughout LinkedIn and our companies and potential clients that we speak to at Synapse. So it's such a huge topic to discuss. What trends are you seeing in businesses adopting AI, and what do you predict will change from your view?
Yeah, quite a few things. So the interesting thing about artificial intelligence kind of solutions is that technology is not the bottleneck as such anymore. We are, as humans, trying to figure out what that means for us and what we should be doing with it, I think, which is, it's an interesting concept. And I think a lot of it will change in the next 5 years plus. Not a massive amount will change this year, I don't think. But I think as the years go on, we will adapt and technology will adapt, and I think we'll end up in a very interesting place. In terms of the AI movement and what it is doing in business as such and what is changing, I think there's a few areas generally, and then there's more specific ones. The first place where it's been applied is experiences of people. And what I mean is, either if you're an employee at a company or if you're a customer, it's improving your experience. So if you're an employee, it's all about how can we make you more productive? How can we give you more interesting work to do? How can we automate any repetitive tasks that you've got, and basically make you more productive and give you better job satisfaction? And the other thing from a customer's perspective is how can we tailor and personalize your experiences, make it more interesting for you, and make you feel more actively engaged, and that everything is tailored to you. Yay, happy customers. So that's the other thing. And then business processes has kind of come next, I think, a little bit. So transforming various processes, whether it's like how are you doing your marketing, to supply chain operations, for example, and finance even, where you don't think there's that much creativity, but actually there's lots of things that you can do. So optimizing those existing processes that businesses have, but also looking at how they can change what they do, and how can they use AI to identify ways that they can grow as a business and do more interesting things. And obviously, the reason for that is because AI in itself is allowing us to innovate more, whether it's like creating new products or just in terms of the creative process of identifying new ways we can use something.
Yeah.
It just helps companies start differentiating themselves a little bit. They can't go a bit too far with, everything is like AI enabled in some way. It's like, oh, your shower gel is AI enabled. It's like, yeah, no, okay. Like we've gone too far. But generally, I think the interesting thing around it is that AI models are advancing at the moment quite quickly. Before, they were all about tasks and doing things more efficiently than before. Everything, from writing code to now we're moving into kind of problem solving. So they're starting to be able to take information and problem solve rather than just do tasks, which is interesting. And science, law, medicine, they're all areas where we're going to benefit massively from that. There was a story recently, and I can't remember the details of it, but someone had a research facility, and it took them, I think, 5 years from the initial data they had to proving a theory or identifying something. It was in medicine, but I can't remember the exact specifics of it. And they gave the same data to AI, and it was able to get to the same conclusion within like 2 days. to be like, oh, here you go. And it also gave them other things they hadn't even thought about. So as a medical team, they had to then take those suggestions and be like, oh yeah, we hadn't thought of that. Let's have a look at that. But obviously, it kind of freaked them all out a little bit.
Yeah.
That, oh good God, like how much faster can we advance the field of medicine in this example, because we now have AI that can get us there faster. So I found that very fascinating. Not fascinating enough to remember the details, but fascinating. Yeah, how will it change? Well, the change bit is an interesting one. How is this going to change? So if you think about the Microsoft ecosystem and where Microsoft is going with this, they are effectively talking about, again, those advanced AI models becoming agents that can work autonomously and make decisions and not really need a human being really to tell them what to do. So it's not just task-based, they are actually able to do their own thing, and then you can link them all together. So you can have different models that do different things, and then you can have an orchestrating model at the top of them, telling each one of them what to do and calling them out. And basically it's the rise of the agentic world. Which for me makes me think of, the Matrix, where you have Agent Smiths that like replicate. That's what it feels like to me. It's like loads of Agent Smiths out there that need to be controlled. I think Satya recently called it a tapestry of agents.
Ooh, nice.
Stealing that one. But effectively what I think that means from a future perspective is that historically software has been something that a human uses to do a thing. So the human is central to the use of it and what it can do with what someone can do with it. But with agents coming in and kind of automatically doing things by themselves and connecting with each other and creating that kind of ecosystem, for lack of a better word, we are then as humans sitting outside of software and are by exception called in. So I think that's what's changing, is we used to be central to it and kind of, controlling and managing everything and telling a software what to do. But now software is going to know what to do. It doesn't need us to tell it what to do. We're just going to be on the outside, only engaging with it if it gets stuck or it needs, by exemption, is us to approve something. Which is an interesting thing, is that AI is changing software. So it's going to be interesting to see how that changes for us and how we adapt to it as well. So yeah,
it makes me nervous.
Agents.
I love it. It does make me feel a bit anxious for my children. Like, what kind of world are they going to grow up in? What jobs do I need to steer them towards? Because so many are going to become obsolete. Do you think that? Or
I think job roles will change. Will they become obsolete? No, like it depends, I think. If you think of actually, because we're talking about children, can you imagine children having a robot as a teacher? They would not, like, they just would not.
No.
I shouldn't admit this, but I was on the school run a few weeks ago, and my daughter had forgotten. She's just turned 13. She'd forgotten to do her homework, or forgotten. It's a common thing. So she said, "Oh, it's all right. I'm going to get my AI to do it." And I said, "What AI?" She said, "Snapchat." So she's put a prompt into Snapchat to write her a 200-word Year 8 essay about whatever it was, and she just copied it out from her
Snapchat,
phone
I didn't
in the car on the way
realize
to
kids could
school.
be using that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But she doesn't talk about it, it's just natural, And I saw there was a bug the other day, and I don't use Google Images and all of that, but she was like, I said, "Oh, what is that?" She said, "I know what it is. I've just checked on Google Images." So her go-to tool is AI now, and
she's augmented by AI.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah, this is exactly it, right? And it's very interesting that they know how to engage with it so quickly and so easily. And for her, AI is Snapchat, but for us, Snapchat is like a young kids chatting thing.
Yeah.
But for her, she's like, oh, it can give me 200 words on a. And this is the thing; it's gonna change. Education, I think, is a particularly difficult field for AI. Because you can now generate essays. You can the things that for our generation we would have to when I was at university, I would go to the library, I would check out books, I would read them, I would do my research and type that into words. Now they don't have to do any of that realistically. So how do you prove that you know something if you can cheat so easily to a certain extent? That's a worry for sure. But it's good that they have those skills, because fundamentally those tools will be available to them. So the question is going to be more around what needs a human touch, metaphorically and literally, I guess.
Yeah.
What needs a human touch? Because AI will not, there's limits, right? We're never going to we can get an AI to fake emotion, support, empathy. We can, but it will be fake. So the question is going to be, at what point do we as a society also decide that it's unethical to use AI in certain ways? And that's where, responsible AI comes in, and legislation around how you can and can't use AI. So I think it will be managed as the years go on, but it will definitely change our
Everything.
perception, as to what can you use AI. I mean, there's an AI tool now, I think it's called Fridge Leftovers or something, where you can take a photo of your fridge and it will tell you what you can cook with what's left in your fridge. Do you know about that?
Oh
It's
my
fun.
gosh, no,
Great.
that's amazing. I'm going to check that
Lots
out.
of cool things, yeah. So there's lots of little things like that. But I'm particularly looking forward to when things get ordered for you by default. So they say that by like 2028, I think, which isn't that far. There's going to be machine customers. So basically agents that your fridge is a smart fridge and it identifies that you're running low on milk and will order you more milk and things like that, where you're not actually buying things anymore and a agent is doing it for you. And it's very interesting for me because the whole of marketing theory, which is kind of my academic background, is around how do you influence a human? How do you, steer a human into buying a certain thing and not another and so on? But how do you do that with an API or an agent? I don't know. I'm dying to find out how they, look into how do you influence an agent?
Yeah.
They're going to try. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they try to manage that when we get to that point. And the concept of it is, that websites will effectively not exist anymore because you won't be going to a website to buy something. That won't be a thing anymore. So if you need a new sweater, your agent will know because you've scanned your wardrobe and it will know that the weather is getting colder and you don't have a sweater. So a sweater will magically appear on your door.
Oh my God. It
You always
just
have
blows my
great
mind.
sweaters, Areti, as well, actually. So
I mean, I'm not against it. If you like the shopping experience, you might be against it, but I'm like, bring on the sweater. But I appreciate as well that I'm very much about experimenting in new things and trying them out and seeing what works. So,
do you think
I can understand that other people might be feeling quite unsettled.
is there like a financial kind of gap that might be created by this? Because from talking to people in business about the cost of AI and people having to buy kind of AI licenses, if you put that into the kind of like AI in the home now, is that going to create a bit of a gap for those that really can't afford one of those fridges or realistically can't afford for the money to just go out of their bank if they run out of something?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's that economic gap exists even now, right? With any technology, electric cars, some people can afford them, some people can't afford them. Any kind of advancement, there's always people that can afford to have a play with it and have it in their lives, and people that have much bigger problems, food insecurity, right? Single parent families where the parent is not eating so their kid can eat. This is the thing, exactly. We are fortunate enough to be in a position to talk about these things, but in reality, can we afford a smart fridge? Would we want to have one in the first place? These are the kind of things where it's a very valid point to raise, Sarah, that not everyone will be able to take advantage of AI until such a time that it becomes affordable or in everything by default, so you don't have a choice. And that's where it then becomes tricky again, because you will always have people that absolutely do not want to have any AI, anything in their lives, and they should have the right to opt out, for lack of a better word. But will we be able to? That's the question. Probably
I quite like
not.
that Alexa asks my permission. So if it's the a fancy shampoo that I've splashed out on, it's time for you to reorder, and I'm like,
maybe I don't want to, Alexa. Maybe I want to try something else.
Maybe you'll get to a point where she just orders it anyway, and then I'm like, oops.
Well, and this is the thing, right? Yeah, and cybersecurity is going to be big in the future. I mean, it's big now, but it will be even bigger in the future, because you can imagine what could happen if your agent is buying things for you and suddenly decides to buy you a Ferrari and puts you in debt. For example, or takes out a loan in your name to do it, or where do we stop with the autonomy that we give those agents? How far are they actually going to be able to go? But I imagine that in a lot of cases, all of that there will still be an element of a human being actually having to confirm that is, what the agent wants to do is actually legitimate, and that's going to be a big part of that as well. Guardian agents, making sure that agents don't misbehave.
There's got to be a film around it somehow, hasn't there?
100%, yeah.
Claire Ocean did an awesome session, and it was really eye-opening about the security around AI, and actually the emails that don't get into your inbox because they go into spam. There is still Copilot can action things that it's bigger than my brain can kind of comprehend. Like, how do we deal with this? So it's great that there are these intelligent people out there.
Well, but keep in mind as well that these are years away. They're not going to happen right now, and who knows what happens years away. They are predictions. They could be wrong. There's that as well. But realistically, we are in that subsection of society that are very techy. So we're going to be talking about it, seeing it first and things like that. But if you're thinking about kind of all of this becoming mainstream, we're probably a long way away. And then, quantum AI and quantum computing is going to come in at some point and blow all of this out of the water anyway. And who knows what that's going to look like. So it's all changed. Gen AI is one thing, but there's lots of other AI things. Exoskeletons are going to come at some point, apparently. So, there's going to be so many things that are going to come up. At the moment, it's all about Gen AI and what we're doing with it. Agents everywhere. But in reality, it's what comes next. Once we have all of these agents, automatically doing all of these things for us and being orchestrated, and cybersecurity around them and responsible AI practices. What about quantum computing? What does that mean for us? What will we be able to do a lot quicker than we thought? So it's an exciting time to be alive, is what I'm saying, because lots of advancements coming quicker than we may have expected. So if you like change and advancement and innovation, it's a great place to be. Not so much if you're not.
Yeah. I'm excited by it, but I think it's just the fear of the unknown, isn't it? You're always apprehensive. I just think for me, for my children, I don't know what kind of world they're going to be growing up in, so I'm just a bit hesitant and kind of just want to know what it's going to be like, but obviously no one knows, so we just got to ride the wave.
Yeah, I think, and my daughter is 5, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be coming to me very much like your daughter, Sarah, and saying, "Oh, I'm doing this thing." And I'm like, "What is this thing? I didn't even know you could do this thing." So I think they will definitely be educating us.
Yeah.
The same way, if you think about it, the same way we have educated our parents. To a certain extent, on how to use technology. Skype is done after this month, no more Skype. And my dad and mom have always called me through Skype. And I had to basically tell them that, you kind of need to use something else now because this is no longer existing. And panic, chaos.
Yeah.
What do we do? What do we do? And it's, and
bless
now
them.
they can use WhatsApp, which is great. Other
Awesome.
software messaging platforms are available. And like Teams free. Woo!
Yeah.
But we've gone down that route. So it's an interesting. They are going to do to us as kids what we are doing to our parents, which is educating them about the latest technology. Yeah, it's gonna be. We're gonna feel the same way our parents feel right now, guys. This is the thing. Yeah,
Very
it's
funny, 'cause you don't see
history
it
repeats
coming,
itself.
do you? Like, you don't expect that it's going to happen. You're like, oh yeah, it's them. It's not me. It's them. But actually, we're wrong.
But I think it's great, right? Because they are, kids are. I'm involved with a charity called Smart STEMs. We're involved as a company, and they are all about getting disadvantaged, kids from a disadvantaged background into STEM and getting them interested in STEM. And they are infinitely curious. Kids are infinitely curious about things, and they make you question your life choices. So bad. And it's great, right? Because we are at this phase of the world now where technology is going to be able to make a lot of things possible for them as a younger generation. The question is going to be whether, kind of coming full circle, whether the society issues that we've got and things like, the issues that the UN is trying to address, are we actually going to be able to see a difference made at that level? Or are we still going to have the issues we have at the moment as humanity, but there's going to be pockets where we're doing great, and there's going to be pockets where the issues are still the issues because there isn't anything technology and AI can do to help. And inevitably as well, which I don't like to think about, but there will probably be things that AI can be used for to harm, to do bad things with. There is that question around, yes, there's going to be lots of great things that happen with AI, but what kind of bad things might happen with AI as well?
To be continued.
To be continued. Let's talk 30. Yeah, definitely. It's a tough one. Deep breaths.
It's so much to digest. It's just, you're so knowledgeable around this. So I think I might have a few more questions as the years go by. Like, what's going to happen next, Areti? Help me out.
Yeah. I can only tell you what is being predicted out there.
Yeah, of course.
But it's primarily technological advancement leads to great things. We just need to be aware of the fact that, and this is where legislation is coming in at the moment.
Yeah.
This thing needs to be controlled. And I think at the moment, the issue is that anyone can create an agent to do anything. There's so many models out there, and we all know about how inaccurate they are. We all know that some of them can't be trusted. Some of them come up with really weird things that are not true. The hallucinations people talk about. But that will change, right? Because what you're seeing is that move to specialized models that will be able to actually stand up to a human and actually be able to help and not come out with weird things. And I think that's just going to allow us to advance a lot quicker. We just need to control it. And we need to know, if you're an organization right now looking to adopt AI, I always talk about the fact that you need to have a strategy and you need to know what your use cases are, how do they link to your business objectives, what are you trying to achieve basically as a company, and why is AI the answer to what you're trying to achieve? Because at the moment I feel like some IT departments or companies feel like they have to have an AI something so they can feel like they're not falling behind. But in reality, you need to ask yourself the hard question of, why is AI the right solution to your problem right now? Because it might not be, and a lot of them will put AI in. There isn't an AI inventory. They don't know why they've picked the model they've picked or what it's doing or how are they going to decide if it's giving them a return on investment. And all of that, I think, is part of kind of having the AI strategy, starting with that, and then putting some governance processes in place to control it and make those kind of conscious decisions about what you're going to use AI for. Because you don't want to, no one wants to be the headline AI nightmare story. So there is that element of trying to use AI in the right way to solve problems that AI is beneficial in using to solve as well.
I think it's a really important point, and I've got this from you actually, Areti. I've seen your AI adoption session a couple of times now, and I direct people to that if they have any questions, whether it's in the day job and they're looking to move into a role like that, or somebody looking to create this AI function. Do we need somebody in this position? The first question, because of that session, is, do you know what your expectations are in terms of the return on this? Like, what's the benefit of it for you? And do you know it's not going to happen overnight? It's a good question actually for people because they often haven't thought of it.
It's definitely, you have to think about AI in the long term. There's a bit of an AI paradox. You have to think about AI in the long term from an investment perspective and structures and governance and all of that stuff. But then a bit short term as well, because the models are going to change so quickly and the technology is going to change so quickly. So whatever we're implementing right now is going to be technical debt in a couple of years, and that we'll need to move away from because it's moving so quickly. So it's one of those things where ideally you need to have a long-term strategy. And a lot of people can experiment, sure, and from a personal productivity perspective, you don't necessarily feel like you need to have a long-term strategy, but people are expecting to have those tools at work now. They're expecting to have the option to use AI and do things with it, and they're expecting that guidance. So there's companies out there that are not embracing it at the moment because they feel like there isn't a clear use case or there isn't going to be a benefit to it, a tangible one. But the thing is that people are using AI in their jobs whether you're allowing them to or not. So look for the hidden AI as well. The shadow AI is definitely there because anyone can use Copilot Chat, for example. And there you are, you're using AI at work and no one knows about it. So there is that element as well of, it's not just putting the things like the AI strategy or governance in place to think about the plan you have as a company. It's also people are doing it, and they're expecting it to be able to do their job better. So to a certain extent, it's all about meeting your employees and your customers' expectations at the same time, I think. Yeah,
for sure. And our final question we like to ask all of our guests on Misfits. Have you ever yourself felt like a misfit?
I don't know if misfit is the right word. I am in rooms where I'm the only woman in the room a lot, for sure. I work in tech. It's a fairly male-dominated industry. I'm trying to change that, obviously, but a lot of the time, don't get me wrong, there are situations where it's mostly women in the room and one guy in the room as well. Sometimes it really depends. But do I feel like I'm a misfit? Not as I just feel like the minority is probably more accurate. I tend to be, in most cases, the only foreign person in the room from another country. I would imagine 99.9% of the time I'm the only Greek person in the room. But it's for me, I've had, particularly when I was younger, I had male, what we call allies now. That were my line managers or were in my teams that very much supported me, very much listened to me, shut me down, didn't think I was just there to make coffee or whatever. I was very, very lucky, really, to have a line of managers that were very, very supportive and saw my skills and experience for what it was, and just, they didn't really care if it was man or woman, they just cared whether I did a good job. But you can feel isolated, and I think that's why it's also important for us to remember that we are representing, to a certain extent, a minority. And there's other minorities out there in tech, right? Women is just one of the minorities, but we need to call out the fact that it's predominantly white, predominantly male. So there's other minorities out there that are not fully represented. So I think you can feel like a misfit for all of those reasons that you are, but by default, us being misfits, we are changing that. So any woman in a leadership position is an example for other women that are looking to be in leadership positions. Any woman in a room acting a certain way is a representation of that. So I think it's important that we keep doing what we're doing. It's okay if you're the only person in the room, as long as you are in the room at the moment. The worst thing would be if there is no woman in the room. See what we were saying earlier about, leadership and politics. The worst thing is a room full of men. And whenever I see a photo of a summit or a thing and it's just all male and white, I'm thinking, oh, great, they've made great inclusive decisions.
Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. But we have to remember as well, right, that men can also represent women.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to have a woman in the room for women to be represented, because at the end of the day, if you think about a man, he has a mother by default. He came from somewhere, and that is very likely a woman, unless something's changed medically that I don't know about. So there is that element as well, that men know women in their lives, have women in their lives, their mothers, their sisters, their best friends, whatever the case might be, their wives, girlfriends. So there will be people in their life that they can relate to. They know what their experiences are like, and they will hopefully want to make sure that the world is inclusive for them. And for, I think there's nothing more important that puts this into sharp focus than having daughters and wanting your daughters to not face the same barriers, language, actions from people, and wanting to change the world so that they don't have to deal with that, and that it doesn't even enter their mind whether they're being paid less than their male colleague. It doesn't enter their mind that, they should have a pocket knife in their pocket if they're walking home alone at night in a dark alley or whatever. So it's that kind of thing, right? I think you just reminded me of something I read recently where I think this is metaphorical. I don't think this was actually asked, right? But there was a room full of men in theory, right? That was asked, oh, why are you afraid of women? And they said, oh, because they might make fun of us. And the women were asked, why are they afraid of men? And they said, because they might kill us. And I thought, okay, great. I mean, that puts it into stark contrast.
Yeah, quite
Which is why I don't think it was a real thing. But it just shows you the difference. I think they were trying to show the difference between a male reality and a female reality.
Yes.
Whether it is that harsh, I'm not sure. Take it with a pinch of salt, depending on your experience. But I'm sure that in some parts of the world, that might well be true, right? Depending on how authoritarian a regime it is.
Yeah.
It's all very interesting stuff. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about supporting each other as people. I think we need to stop, to a certain extent, thinking about men and women and think about an equal workforce, regardless of men, women, however else you identify, right? A world that is better for women is better for everybody, always has been. You could say the same about any other part of society, really. So it's all about just creating a better world. Oh, we've gone deep. There you go. Let's leave it at that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Areti. You've given myself and Sarah and our listeners so much amazing information to go away and digest. So, wow, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem at all.
thank
Thanks for
you.
having me. And yeah, if anyone wants to learn more about the Women in Power platform, a group that I'm a mentor of that helps women in the power platform and other industries, really STEM industries, they do mentorship programs, they do skilling up, they do amazing work, really. Reach out. Same with the UN Women. It happens every year. You can attend remotely. It's great for understanding what's happening in the world and how you can help spread the word about it as well. So yeah, reach out on LinkedIn or through the web or, carrier pigeon, whatever works for you.
We'll add
It is
some links to the post
incredible.
for people to get to. Awesome.
Yes, definitely. I don't know how you find the time to do everything you do.
Ruthless organization and prioritization.
Wow. Yeah. You're just a bit of an inspiration, really. I'm tired thinking about all these things that you do.
Yeah, I need to drink less coffee, I think is basically what I'm hearing. Yeah.
It's really important, though. I mean, joking aside, it's so important that there is that voice out there, and it's such a balanced and reasonable voice. The way you articulate the things that you're passionate about is great. And I agree, there are men maybe that have felt this podcast wasn't targeted at them as an audience, which really isn't the case. There are people with daughters and sisters and mothers and people that they care about and colleagues that they want to empower to succeed as well and get to equality. So
Yeah,
all welcome
definitely.
here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with the Women in Power platform program as well. We have male mentors, part of the mentorship program, as an example. And a lot of the time people will reach out and say, oh, I would love to be a mentor to a woman in the industry, but do you accept men? And I'm like, we absolutely accept anyone that wants to be a mentor. Men sometimes can think, well, there's different personalities, right? Again, I don't want to genderize this, but men can think differently to women. And it's interesting how someone with a different personality to you will approach a problem. So I think there's great benefits to men listening to this podcast, but also just don't assume that anything that is an initiative for women by default is not allowing men to get involved, because it definitely does. So definitely don't make that assumption. Always check as well. Can you actually help female initiatives? That's a great point. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Perfect. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.